Hey everyone, welcome to the channel where we talk about all things movies. As we approach the end of May here, it's time to reflect back on the month in a Movies Monthly. So in this, we're just going to go through, first up, we go through all the movies that I saw in theaters and just do a tier ranking, just a brief kind of recap of everything there. And then next, I go into all the stuff I've been watching at home. And then finally, we cap it off with some recommendations for soundtracks that I've been listening to. All right, so with that, let's get into the tier list for May of 2022. And compared to last month, April, I saw a lot of movies in theaters. I think there were like 16, but May was a little bit slower. I only saw 8 in theaters. I think there just wasn't as much playing this month as in April, but that's fine. We'll, go through the ones that I saw and just break them down and put them into their respective tiers. All right, so first up, we've got Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Now, this was one of my most anticipated movies of the year. It was right up there with The Batman, which came out in March. I'm not really sure which one I was more excited for. I think probably The Batman, just reflecting back at how excited I was day of going in to see the movie, but this was definitely very high up there. And I think that kind of hurt how much I enjoyed the movie a bit because it didn't live up to my expectations. So I think that reflected poorly on the film. It was not the sort of movie I was thinking we were going to get, mainly because they dropped things in the trailer, which, given that they put that in the trailer, I assumed there would be significantly more of that in the movie, and that's not what we got. So I'm mainly referring to cameos. I don't think that's really a spoiler to kind of talk about it, at least in that sense. But I did see this a second time in theaters, and I did actually enjoy it a bit more. Now, my opinion of the film as far as my letter grade for it hasn't changed. I think it's higher in the tier that it's in, but it's still solidly a B and in the fun category for me. So this one, so my issues with the film were mainly Wanda as the villain. I thought that Elizabeth Olsen played the character very, very well, but I felt like it was just slightly incomplete of a character, and it felt like the people who wrote her, well, A, didn't watch WandaVision, which I found out after seeing the film that the director apparently didn't watch WandaVision, which has the most character development of Wanda Maximoff in all the MCU. So I find that fairly unacceptable for somebody who's going to direct a film with her as the villain. There's a couple other points, like a lack of Vision's character was also very prominent, and then other things with the film that I didn't really care for. I felt like Doctor Strange didn't have very much character development, and so overall it was just kind of a weaker film. I still had a lot of fun with it, so it's definitely in the fun category, but I felt like it was a missed opportunity for Marvel. Even though I did appreciate them kind of expanding out and not just putting this movie through the Marvel factory, it is very much a horror film, although it is a PG-13, so I mean there's only so much you can do. But those pieces I did appreciate, especially on second viewing when I kind of understood more what this was going to be. All right, next up we've got Firestarter. This one was solidly in the meh category. There were, a couple good performances, mainly Zac Efron. I thought did a great job, but at the end of the day, this was not a very memorable movie. And I felt like the child actress that they got, while she was fine, she didn't win me over for the film and have me buy in. And that's what you need to do when you have a child actor lead. So that one is in the meh category for me. Next up, we have Family Camp. This just felt like a Hallmark video or movie, something like that. It did not feel like a movie that is worth a trip to the theater necessarily, but it was fun enough. Like, it wasn't a bad film, but I would say it's one that you could maybe watch on cable if you're interested, but I think there's a lot better stuff out there and I wouldn't recommend it. So that's another one that is in the meh category for me. And then after that, we had Downton Abbey, A New Era. This is a movie that I was looking forward to. I had my expectations kind of limited, though. I'm a huge fan of the show, and the first movie they made was good, but it wasn't like great and didn't quite reach the heights of the show. And I think this was kind of in the same vein as that. It's too long to be a single episode, but too short to be a full season, and it's kind of in that awkward in between where it feels both rushed and too long at the same time, which is really weird. But it was good to revisit these characters and just get a chance to spend more time with them. There's a couple things that they did in the film that I, really liked as far as where we like what we got to see for some of these characters that we've been following for years. So this was fun. I think it could have been better, but definitely a solid B and in the fun category. Next up, we have Men. This was a horror film. I was hoping to like this film going into it. I was at 75% on Rotten Tomatoes, but it is a film that I personally did not enjoy. I'm not a huge fan of horror, and this definitely gets into some horror and like grotesque elements. So I did not enjoy this coming out of the theater. But that was just me. I appreciate the artistry that goes into this movie, especially the cinematography and the acting. And since then, kind of seeing other people review the movie and just getting some comments and stuff like that, I do appreciate it a bit more for some of the symbolism. I still don't quite fully understand everything that the movie was going for as far as, the underlying message and the meanings of things. But some of it I've grown to understand more since seeing it, so that does help me appreciate the movie more. But for me personally, this is still a meh category of a film. And again, that's just based off my personal enjoyment. I think if you like horror, you probably would have this up in the liked category, or it's a very strong possibility, but I don't. So it takes a movie being very, very good to kind of get in that category. But there are ones that do get higher. For I did like Scream. I think that was in my liked category from earlier this year. And I think one of my favorite horror films was The Invisible Man from a couple years ago. So it is possible for me to like horror, I will say that, but it does take a lot from them. Next up, we have Top Gun Maverick. That just released this weekend, and this was just so much fun. I haven't had this much fun in a movie since, well, I would say fun-wise, probably The Lost City. That was a lot of fun to go see at the theater and just be in a room with a lot of people who were enjoying the same movie that you were and hearing everyone else laugh and have a good time. I've seen some other films this year, but none of them quite have had that sort of feeling other than Top Gun Maverick. And I really enjoyed the film. There's a lot of things that I liked about it, just the overall story, the heart, the characters, a lot of good stuff here. And I've seen some people say the second act was a little slow, and I think maybe it is, but I think that's just I still appreciate it and think it's kind of the calm before the storm, because the third act is really good, and I think it holds up as a believable mission for something that would take place in the 21st century in the current day. So this one I absolutely loved. It is in that loved category for me. Just trying to place it there. But it's not my favorite movie of the year. That's still kind of tied between the Batman and Everything Everywhere All at Once. But it is one of the three movies that I've put up in that category this year. Next up, we have Bob's Burgers, or the Bob's Burgers movie. And this is a movie about a show that I haven't seen, so I knew nothing going into it. But I had a good time. It was a fun movie, and it was interesting to kind of learn about some of these characters. I would say I'm not fully on board to go check out the show, but I'm more interested than before when I had seen the movie. So in that sense, for it being a movie, I think it did its job well as far as getting people interested in these characters and the show who weren't, at least from my perspective. It moved my interest needle further in that direction. So I think job well done. And so while it wasn't one of my favorite movies, it was one that was fun, and I think worth the watch if you're looking for something to watch. And then lastly, we have Montana Story. This is just it's a drama. It's more a character study and kind of very slow burn of a film. And I think it made it worth the watch in the end due to a couple scenes. And I said that in my review, and I still stand by that. I do think it was worth those couple scenes in the final act, but without those, it would have been a very meh film. But with those in and pulling them off and getting to see the talent displayed by the actors and just some raw emotion, I put this in. It's not really fun, but it was a decent movie that I'd give a B. So those are the 8 films that I saw in theaters. It was, I would say, a pretty below average month. Honestly, I only had, one movie in the S or A tier, and then everything else was in the like B and C tier, basically, for the fun and meh. But that's okay. I mean, I'm hopeful that, next month might be a bit better, but I'd say overall maybe a little bit of a letdown of a month. I was hoping Doctor Strange and Downton Abbey would be in that liked category, but hey, can't always get what you're hoping for. But Top Gun exceeded my expectations, so you it's a give and a take. All right, so with that, let's get into the movies and TV that I saw at home this month. So some of these will be things that I rewatched and some I saw for the first time. The Just going left to right for what's on the screen here. The new thing that I watched this month was Tokyo Vice. That was new on HBO Max. And I really liked the show. It's not quite to the level of a show that I absolutely loved, but I'm definitely excited for season 2, which I assume is greenlit based off of the kind of cliffhanger ending that they gave to the season. But I just really liked kind of the setting of the show, just going into kind of the crime of Tokyo and getting it through the perspective of this American journalist. But I really like all the main actors and characters. I think there's kind of 4 in general. You've got the journalist, you have the aspiring club owner woman, and then you've got the main guy that we follow in the Yakuza, and then you've got the main detective guy. I apologize, I forget names and actors, but this is a show that had me interested throughout the entire season. It's not like the most edge of your seat sort of show, but it also isn't the slowest burn either. I thought it set a pretty good pace, kind of mixing drama with action, and it definitely had me intrigued throughout. So this is one I definitely recommend. I liked it quite a bit, and looking forward to the next season. Next up, we have Stranger Things 2 and 3. I rewatched these in preparation for watching season 4, which just drops yesterday, or 2 days ago now. I haven't finished season 4, so that's why it's not on this list. I'm working my way through it, but also they're dropping it in parts. So I think the last 2 episodes drop in July. So that will pop up in my July movies monthly, because I only comment or talk about things in this section when I finished a full season of something. So that's why the next 2 items on this list are here, because their seasons wrapped this month. But rewatching seasons 2 and 3, this was the first time that I had rewatched them. I've seen the whole show through once, and then I'd rewatched season 1 at some point. But these were good to rewatch. I think I'm trying to decide if it's a loved or a liked. I think I loved season 1, but seasons 2 and 3 I liked a lot. It's borderline loved, but I'm gonna put liked there. But it's very strong liked for both of these. And I think between the 2, I liked season 3 better. But I do like both of them. I didn't really care for Elle's storyline in season 2, like taking her away from the rest of the group. Like, for a show that has a lot of D&D references, it's like a prime rule, or like number 1 rule, don't split the party. And season 2, I felt like they split the party as far as Elle going off on her own. I think the other seasons do split the party, but that's just because they're kind of getting such a large cast that they need to do it. Like, you're not going to have 10 characters running around the whole time. But I don't think it's good to go off and have one person kind of on their own. And I think that side storyline with Elle and the other, Elle and I think it was 8 or 7. But I didn't think that really was all that interesting. So I think that took away from the season. And I mean, there were fun elements. The kind of Halloween theme and fall theme was fun to see, but I think I preferred kind of the summer theme and 4th of July for Stranger Things season 3. But definitely recommend both of those if for some reason you haven't seen Stranger Things. I think it's one of the most popular shows out there. But if you got Netflix and haven't seen it, definitely check it out. Working on my way through season 4, and so far it's still at the same level as all the other seasons, which is very, very good television. Next up, we have A Million Little Things. This show just wrapped, I think, season 4 this month. So I watch these episodes kind of week by week as they drop throughout the year. Just catch them on Hulu. So they concluded this last season, and I think this show is. I think this is in the fun category. It's between fun and liked for me, but I think if it's kind of in between, I usually err on the side of dropping it down a level. And what I like about this show is that it addresses a lot of, I think, kind of relatable subject matter, and it has the characters just kind of going through things that I think a lot of people go through. And I think it touches on a lot of important stuff. So I think it's a very important show for that. So I think it's a fun watch, but I think it's the parts of it that make it kind of keep it from being in the liked category are mainly like the mystery elements that they kind of put on the show, and it's been that way every single season. Like there's some overarching mystery, and this season's I thought was not very good. I thought it was kind of obvious when they presented it, and then they like gave you evidence to make you double think or double check or think that you were wrong, and then it went back to the original conclusion. So I felt like they just kind of messed with you, and I didn't really appreciate that, and I didn't find the mystery all that interesting. But what I did like a lot about this season is just exploring more of the relationship between Maggie and Gary. I thought that was really good to see, and fun to see that evolve. Next up, we have The Good Doctor, and this is kind of in the same category. I like the show. It just wrapped season 5, so I mean, I'm still tuning in at this point, but it's I think here again, it's another show that addresses very important stuff, and like for that reason, kind of the subject matter that it touches on is a very important show. But I like most of the characters. It's fun to tune in and see what is Dr. Sean Murphy up to. I think this was probably one of my least favorite seasons. I personally don't really like Leah's character on the show. I feel like that's nothing against like the actress or how the character's written, but like the type of character that she is not a personality that it's not one that I connect with very much or that I enjoy, but that's just my personal preference, which is, one sample out of everybody else that's out there. So take that with a grain of salt, but that still shapes how much I enjoy the show. And so having this season focus mainly on like Leah and Sean and their wedding, that I felt was like the reason why it kind of brought this season down for me. But that's fine. I don't know. I think some of the earlier seasons are the ones that I like better, mainly because I liked some of the characters in the earlier seasons that they've since written off the show. And again, that's fine. It's nice to see new characters in, and I do like the new characters. I just don't like them as much as some of the ones that have been written off. But again, I think this is a good show. It's similar to A Million Little Things. I think is kind of a feel good show, but in a way where it's not just like light and happy. It's kind of like a realistic take on it, which I don't know. It's sort of like, other people have problems and they get through it, and that's why it's kind of a feel-good show for me. And then last up, we've got Cruella. This was just a movie that I watched at home. I saw it in theaters, but it was my first time rewatching it since then, and that was about a year ago now. So it was good to see this movie again. I did enjoy it. I would put it in I think this was a solid B. It's between a B and an A, so it's between liked and fun. I think it feels a little long. I'm trying to think. I'm torn. I'm gonna put it in fun because there's elements that I really like the music makes me want to put it in the liked category, which is a letter grade of an A basically. But I think it's mainly that the second act is pretty slow, and it makes the movie feel a little long. But there are a lot of elements that I like. Like Emma Stone and Emma Thompson knocked it out of the park with their performances. The costume design, I mean, it was nominated for and won an Emmy, so or an Oscar, excuse me. But so overall, I thought it was a very well made film. But this time I felt its length the first time seeing it in theaters, and then this time as well. So I think if they had maybe just tightened up the script a little bit and made it a bit more concise of a film, then it would get into that liked category for me. But yeah, that does it for the movies and TV that I watched at home. It was a lot of TV this month, not as many movies, but that's okay. Next up, we've got my soundtrack recommendations. These are the new soundtracks that I listened to this month. And I'd say all of these are recommendations except for one. So I thought The Bad Guys was very good music. That was one of the elements that I liked about the film the most. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, I did not care for the soundtrack. I thought there were... Yeah, I mean, I thought that Danny Elfman did a good job for it as a soundtrack for a horror film, which in this case wasn't terribly thematic, but the sort of music that goes with a horror film is not my type of music. So I didn't really care for this soundtrack. I think I only saved like one, maybe two songs to my soundtrack playlist from this, and that was mainly, I think it was like the end credit scene and one other. But I was a little disappointed that, yeah, I think like Michael Giacchino, who did the first film, he came up with this really, like, he had a very thematic sort of soundtrack, and this one didn't feel terribly thematic. So, I like some of Danny Elfman's other stuff, but this one just wasn't really for me. Next up, I thought that Firestarter was really good. There again, I think that was probably one of the best things about the film. So definitely recommend checking that soundtrack out. And same thing with Tokyo Vice. That was a good soundtrack. It reminded me a bit of like Westworld and that sort of thing, just kind of the feel of it. It's a different composer or composers, but that again I thought fit the mood of the show very well, and was, I enjoyed it, outside of the show to listen to in the background and that sort of thing while I'm working or whatever. And then last up, we got Top Gun Maverick. Here again, another really good soundtrack. I think I saved almost all, if not all, of the score to my soundtrack playlist. So I liked all of them. I think it was composed both by Lauren Belf and Hans Zimmer, but I don't know if they, collaborated on everything or if they just kind of took some songs and each did their own. Not really sure, but I liked it. It was nice to have them bring back the Top Gun theme, and then just have it, it's two composers that I really liked, and they're just doing their thing, and they know how to do it. So, I enjoy both of them and the soundtrack too. So, with that, that kind of wraps up our movies monthly for the month of May. Looking forward into June of 2022 for what I am anticipating most, I would say Lightyear and Jurassic World Dominion are the movies that I'm looking forward to the most in theaters. I'd say probably Lightyear a bit more than Jurassic World. I enjoy the Jurassic Park and Jurassic World movies, but I'm not like the biggest fan. But I'm hoping it'll be good. But Lightyear, I'm excited for that. And other than that, I think for TV, Westworld comes back for season 4, and I'm really excited for that. I'm a huge Westworld fan. I think it hasn't really lived up to the heights of season 1, but I do really appreciate how each season feels unique and different. So I'm curious to see what season 4 has to bring to the table and where they go next. But there again, I won't review that or talk about that in a Movies Monthly until the season concludes, so that'll probably be a few months away, but definitely excited that the premiere for the season is this upcoming month. But I think what will wrap this month is the Obi-Wan series on Disney+. I've seen the first 2 episodes, and I think it has a chance of being a really good show. It's hard to tell at this point. I think, if it'll pull it off, I think it could, but I'm excited to see where that goes. But definitely share your thoughts down below. If you have, seen some movies this last month, what were some of your favorite in the month of May? What shows have you been checking out at home? Are you, binging Stranger Things this weekend? And what are you looking forward to most in June of 2022? I'd love to hear all of it down in the comments below. And yeah, with that, that concludes this Movies Monthly for May of 2022. If you've enjoyed this, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming reviews and other Movies Monthly down the road. But with that, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.